Hi everyone, this is Drew. I am Drew, spelled as Drew, and welcome to my channel. So, in the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, Kiyosaki quoted, "It's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep," right? So, my roadmap to achieving financial independence is a combination of what I learned from World System Builder and Andrei Jikh. Yes, shout out to Mr. Andrei Jikh for sharing his strategies, his financial concepts, his financial thoughts, which inspired me to also do the same, to basically save my future. Because the future is not in the hands of the government, it's not in the hands of your employer, it's all in your hands. In my hands. My financial independence is in my hands. So I have to take care of that. So let's get on to this first vlog. Let's go. And first of all, before I continue on, by any means, I am not a financial professional yet. Because I truly believe, in just like what Jay Shetty said, you find yourself when you lose yourself in the act of service. And I want to serve, especially, teaching people how to be financially independent, to be financially free on their burdens, on their financial debts, so that they can have that freedom to live to live the life that they always dreamed of. With that said, let's continue on. So the first step on my own financial independence journey is to set up the budget, basically, and your financial goals. Right? So it is important to know, right? To know the framework of your financial life, and to also envision your financial goals. So how do you do it basically, right? So on the next slide, it says, the formula, right, in setting up your budget is basically income minus expenses equals your cash flow. So money in, right, and then the money out. And what's left of it, hopefully there's something left of it, is your cash flow, the money that you can spend, right? It is the extra money that you can spend. Of course, as a beginner, this is what we focus on. But as, reading Robert Kiyosaki, employees and poor people, they focus on what? The income statement. But rich people, like his rich dad, focuses on what? His assets, on what he has. And that's what we should focus on. That's where we should strive to be on. But as a beginner, this is where we should start, right? And everyone should start in this, because you have to know how much money you're bringing in and you're bringing out, so that you can plan ahead, so that you can prepare for your financial future, for your goals. The first step is to investigate your bank account. And by means, you have to know what are your sources of income. First off, you have to know where does your money comes from. It could be from your main job. It could be from your side jobs. If you have side hustles. And step 2, analyze and categorize your spending habits. by means of that, you should first break it down. Break your expenses into two categories. First is your fixed expenses are your mortgage, your car, and that also includes their insurances. After you've analyzed your fixed expenses, now you can move on to your variable expenses. This is the expenses that you can manipulate, that you can decrease or increase your funds of. For example, your debts, you can overpay it. What else? Your investments, if you have one, then you should start already. Because there are multiple platforms where you can start investing for free with zero maintenance fee, right? Or broker fees. And lastly, after categorizing all your expenses from fixed and variable, and variable also, before I forget, it also includes your takeouts, your eat outs, your dinner. Because you can choose whether to eat out or not, right? Your Starbucks that costs what? A lot if you accumulate it time and time again rather than saving it. And step 3, calculate your income and then subtract it with your expenses. Okay? And then, of course, the second step is protection. Well, why protection? Because life is full of uncertainties. People do not know what will happen tomorrow. Right now, we're in the midst of chaos, possible chaos, because of the ongoing tensions between Russia and Ukraine. And we really do not know what will happen in the future. No one knows. As they say, the only certain in this world is that there is uncertainty. So, with that said, you should get protected in the events of disability, illness, and of course, we may like it or not, even that, because who knows that a pandemic will ravage the lives of millions of people, that this pandemic will affect our lives for years. There are even news spreading out that COVID-19 will always be part of our lives. It will become an endemic, and it is not a pandemic anymore. So those are, thoughts that we should take into consideration so that we can, set up properly our financial goals ahead of us. How do we really calculate? I've learned this throughout, attending workshops. Right? Financial people have this method that they call a dime method to know basically how much you needed, how much coverage you needed for a life insurance. So D stands for debt, right? Then I stands for income, which should be, to properly cover your loved ones, is 10 times your annual income. Mortgage is how much does your house worth, and how much it costs that you need to pay it off still. And then lastly, your education. If you have children, okay, how much do they really need? Right now, we're standing at 120,000 annual expenses for college. So not only college, but overall, including their elementary, their K to 12 years. Okay. And then next one is to set up your emergency fund. I've read the books of Dave Ramsey that you have to start with 1,000, and that's what I'm doing right now, starting with with $1,000 worth of emergency fund. Again, the concept of uncertainty, because we do not know what will happen. There are wrecks, especially here where I am located. Cars are speeding through, and accidents happen everywhere. And of course, your house. Things happen, especially now in winter where pipes burst, right? So those things. Okay? We clear on that? You have any question? I'm speaking to a computer. My life is boring. Anyway, moving on. And of course, you also have to take care of your debt management, which I am right now currently doing, still paying off some debts. Not student loans, credit card debts, which is, thankfully, because I learned this in earlier year of my life, I'm humble enough, and I'm proud also as well that I'm continuously paying my debt off. And my goal is to not zero debt, but managing my debt. Right? So how do we do it? So first, you have to list all of your debt from largest to smallest. Right? Step 2, there's this 2 concepts basically. There's the snowballing, and there's also the avalanche method. So what I like to do for me personally is I pay the smaller debt first, then work my way up, because that dopamine hit, that when I pay off a small debt, then it makes me keep going on. But it depends to person, because some people are disciplined enough, right, to do the avalanche method. Well, why avalanche method? Because the avalanche method is the method where it will save you a lot more when it comes to interest rates, because you're basically paying off cards with higher interest rates first, okay, then working your way down. Hence, avalanche method. Then step 3, you should pay more than the minimum, right? And and that's what I said, optional. You can also pay from largest to smallest. Okay. And that's what I'm doing right now. This step 2. I like the snowballing method. And lastly, this is the 5th step. Right? Finish my emergency fund. So basically, emergency funds should worth 3 to 6 months worth of your paycheck. So if you are earning 5,000 a month, then your emergency fund should worth what? 5,000 times 6, which is what? 30,000 worth of emergency fund. So this will be enough to cover certain emergencies of life, basically. What if something happens to you, right? So you're unable to work. Basically, it takes 6 months before your insurance to take on or kick off for you, or for the insurance to work for you. So after you finish your emergency fund, right, you should already work on your retirement investing, which I'm doing right now. This is basically all the steps that I'm doing, right? So that I can have that financial freedom that I'm longing for. So it says here, it's not about the age. This is based on the book called Saving Your Future, which I read, and it's a really good read because it breaks down for the common people to understand who are not financial geeks, basically. So this page also teaches why we should start in an early age. Well, why? So we have two people here, Mr. Start Early and Mr. Wait Longer. Okay, so Mr. Start Early, right? He started at age 25. Basically, these two people, hypothetically, are investing the same amount, 3,600 yearly contribution, in an 8% growth. Okay, so Mr. Start Early have to contribute 25,200 from age 25 to 31 to have a total accumulation of 128,000 by the age of 48. On the other hand, right, Mr. Wait Longer, he didn't want to start because he didn't feel like it. So he started at age 32. Right, this is like your poor dad, which we all have sometimes. Anyway, so Mr. Wait Longer started at 3,600, of course, at age 32, and he contributed all the way down, all the way up, because you're growing old, not growing young. Sad. 3,600 down up to 48 years old, with a total contribution of 61,200. And just to reach or to have the same total accumulation amount of what Mr. Start Early did. The difference is, Mr. Wait Longer had to contribute more than Mr. Start Early. Mr. Start Early only contributed 25,200, while Mr. Wait Longer had to contribute 61,200, and there's about half the difference, right? So basically, more than half actually. Mr. Wait Longer has to contribute more than half just to reach the same amount of what Mr. Start Early had. So that's the power of compounding interest. But right now, our inflation rate is a staggering 7%. Don't freak out. Anyway, and lastly, build your wealth. For example, you're retiring at age 65, that's your plan. In order to live a 30-year life of retirement in freedom, supposedly you're not working anymore. You're not going to work. You're not planning to work. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, right, 65 and older spends an average of $50,000 a year. So if we take that 49,279 and based upon the 4% rule, those people should have 1,000,000 to 231,975 invested in order to have that freedom, to achieve that freedom. So in your case, in my case, I am comparing my monthly expenses, then multiply it by 12, then multiply it again by 25, and that is the money I should have in my investments, which I am currently working on. And in order to save up for that, we have that 10%, you can save up 30%, 50%, and then lastly, in order to the maximum, the goal, or if you can, the 65%. This basically, if you can save up by this amount, by this percentage, then it will tell you how much years it will take you to retire. So basically, just like what Andrei Jikh said, thank you, Mr. Andrei. 10% is, it will take, if you save up 10% right now, it will take you 51 years to retire. So with 30%, it will take you 28 years to retire. 50%, which is, according to Andrei, is our goal, should be, which it will only take you 17 years until retirement. And lastly, if you're really minimalist, right, you put it all on savings, on investing, 65%, it will take you only 10 years until retirement, which is currently what I'm striving to put into, to invest onto, so that I can retire by the age of, I don't want to say my age. I'm old. Do I look like old? No, I'm Asian. So you look young. But I'm old. Anyway, I hope you learned something about my plan of how I take care of my financial life, how I prepare for my financial future. And if you like this video, kindly hit the like button. And if you like my content, subscribe, share the love.